Hi, my name is Elaine. I'm part of Topic 16, Tax Code Review to increase business competitiveness. And if my teammates would like to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Marvana Bean.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Yu.
Hi, my name is Sahana Kulashekaran.
So, right now, Maryland is facing real financial instability, and if these physical challenges go unaddressed, it can get worse. So, neighboring states already keep taxes significantly lower, which pushes businesses to invest elsewhere instead. Our corporate tax sits at 8.25%, which is the ninth highest in the country, while our overall tax structure ranks 36. And comparing that to Virginia's 6% or North Carolina's 2.25%, that's significantly higher.
So, right now, Maryland has what's called a structural deficit, and basically, the state's spending obligations are bigger than what its tax base can bring in. So, that gap is around $598 million today. And if nothing changes, it could grow up to 4 or 5 billion by 2033. And so currently with its Maryland's financial state, it's not really in a position to cut taxes right now. So making the state more tax competitive is a longer term project. And if we want better business competitiveness and economic growth down the road, we first have to address Maryland's fiscal standpoint.
According to Wu's research report, there are 7 policy options that we can implement to address the budget gap. So options 1 and 2 address Maryland's 2 largest expense drivers. Specifically, the education blueprint cost has especially big effects on the widening budget gap, so reducing both of those will help a lot. Option 3, targeted revenue broadening, is done basically in preparation to eventually lower tax rates and increase tax competitiveness. And so, from a comparative analysis of other states, reveals like the strategy of first broadening the tax base and then reducing rates eventually. And so option 4, administrative efficiency, can also help to close the gap by millions of dollars, which overall increases freedom for later tax reform. And reserve deployment can be used basically to help smooth out transitions for any of these policy changes. And option 6, tax competitiveness reform, is kind of like the key policy option of this topic because it most directly impacts business competitiveness. So it involves basically lessening the overall effect of taxes in various regards, which decreases incentives for taxpayers and businesses to move away, and having them stay will eventually increase revenue once they start to prosper. And option 7, federal contingency planning, basically addresses Maryland's vulnerability caused by a large portion of their funds coming from federal funding, which is almost 1/3. And establishing a risk office helps to monitor federal action, protecting against contingencies, and also grant diversification allows Maryland to be less dependent on federal funding in general. And so option 6, even though it has the highest projected benefit, it is the least developed option. So basically it's the hardest to implement and the hardest to estimate the effects of. So in the next slide that we'll look at, the tax reform is omitted because of these factors.
So this is directly from Delegate Wu's budget report, and package B pretty much is the most balanced out of all his options because it includes everything except option 6 from the previous policy recommendations. Um, and it's balanced because there's a good level between spending and revenue, and package B is forecasted to close the budget deficit by 55% over time, allowing for more freedom and tax rate changes.
And so there are several policy recommendations, starting with short-term actions. Um, which are classified by being lower risk, easier to implement, or yielding near-term returns. These include Medicaid reform, federal contingency planning, and administrative cleanup, according to the report. And also, um, you can begin to plan tax reform during this time, even if it takes a few years to implement. And medium-term actions are a little bit more major and a little bit harder to implement, but these include blueprint phasing and tax base broadening. And some long-term considerations include um, eventually tax competitiveness reform. And to achieve that, I think we should continue monitoring short-term and medium-term effects, and then also implement once the gap stabilizes and we have more supporting evidence.
I also added that we should have a phased corporate tax reduction where we work gradually towards a corporate tax rate of 6.25 through a multi-year plan with strategic funding. And lastly, protecting high growth innovation, so possibly exempt core tech services and R&D inputs from the new sales tax to retain key innovation corridors.